Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that was requested by a lot of y'all, but I think particularly one kind of gave me a summary of what they were looking at or what they were struggling with. And I felt like, and I answered you, I said I'm going to make a video on it, but I felt like this video could help you as well as anybody who's curious. Yes, there are some avoidants that change and some that do not, and you can tell typically within the first 6 months to a year. And I'm going to tell you what that looks like. But not all avoidants are the same. They exhibit different behaviors and different levels of commitment. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. This is particularly for dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance, but it's going to be if they lean very dismissive. Because a lot of the traits that I'm talking about are not too common with fearful avoidance, at least not. They can be initially, but what I notice about fearful avoidance particularly is they're actually more willing to change comparison to dismissive avoidance, but fearful avoidance usually need a little bit more of a push. Not all the time. But with dismissive avoidance, they can change very, very slowly, but it is change. Fearful avoidance is a little bit more, they might be very resistant to it at first, but then they are able to change. Because the reason why that happens is they're resistant because they're afraid, similar to dismissive avoidance. So with fearful avoidance, that abandonment kind of shows up. So they might lose something, they might get hurt, and they have a lot of trauma. So some of them have PTSD or complex PTSD. In the United States, we don't diagnose for complex PTSD, but I see a distinction. So you might see flashbacks, you might be struggling with something as a fearful avoidant, and then you start realizing, wait, I need to fix myself because then I'm going to be struggling in a lot of different areas. So the best way to put it is fearful avoidants tend to have more incentive to change because they have a plethora of trauma. But it's kind of harder for them to get there because they have to process some of this trauma. Dismissive avoidance, they can change slower and more gradual. That's kind of the difference. It's hard to explain because that's not always the case. Because for me, I used to be avoidant and mine wasn't very gradual at all. It kind of was like a hitting rock bottom thing. But for my partner, he changed like pretty slowly, but it was pretty consistent and really obvious. And both of the times we changed, it was within the relationship. But let's go ahead and talk about change and how you can tell. Let's kind of give examples. Okay, let's do like two case studies to compare. Let's say a man in his 60s. A lot of you guys were also asking about like older avoidance, and I'll make a video on that. Let's say he separated from his wife, and then maybe she divorced him because he was always away, something like that. And he didn't fight for the relationship. He didn't understand her side. So he kind of let go of his family. He displayed very detached behaviors. He was married, right? And after this marriage, after she went ahead with the divorce and he didn't want to change, etc., maybe he's been out of romantic relationships, including any sort of connection physically for, let's say, 17 years, okay? He was never upfront about his feelings, about the failure of his divorce. He never told her that he loved her, his ex-wife. He blamed his ex-wife for the marriage troubles. He did not demonstrate any behavioral changes throughout the entire marriage. And this man, in this example, is 60, okay? Let's give another case study. Let's say a man let's make him younger, early 40s, okay? He's upfront about not wanting a relationship from the start, okay? Let's say now he's in a relationship, but it happened like really slow. Let's say he's been in this relationship for, let's say 2 years, okay? And he became more comfortable with commitment throughout. Originally, he was more rigid, and he obviously had very clear signs of avoidant. He eventually slowly admitted that maybe he does want a relationship. Maybe he doesn't want the label, but this is still considered a relationship. Maybe his views have changed on intimacy. Maybe his views have changed on planning to get married. Maybe his plans have changed about certain things, but it took a long time. Actually, 2 years is probably not a good example. Let's give him 6 years because that makes more sense. He's been with her for 6 years. Slowly, he's admitting some change. He's not blaming her. He's taking accountability for himself. He's also communicating his needs more. He might say, give me a bit of leeway. Sometimes I mess up. Or be easy with me. Be patient with me. Stop messaging me all the time. I get overwhelmed. So he's admitting what he needs. So what are the differences between these two hypothetical cases, okay? The communication style. The first man, the man in his 60s, he was very indirect. Okay, he separated from his wife. Likely he wanted to leave, but he wasn't even the one who divorced. She kind of did, right? He didn't fight for the relationship. Even if he probably wanted to, he didn't show that, okay? He was never upfront about his feelings, and he blamed his wife. He is clearly indirect about his feelings. He's still avoidant, right? But he's just more indirect. The other man is more clearly or more obviously what someone would call avoidant, but he was more clear about all of his boundaries. He set everything up front. I don't want a relationship, but he was still with her. He slowly was more comfortable, started admitting that he's changing. He also admitted his feelings, right? He's more direct and more open about the gradual commitment. He is just more direct. And this is why this particular trait is one of the most common reasons why I think avoidance, the ones that are direct, they are more comfortable with themselves. Their shame wound is not as powerful. However, their rigid wound is a little bit more stronger. Not their rigid wound, their rigid defense mechanism. Not even defense mechanism. Whatever. Maladaptive behavior. I should know this. I'm tired. Anyways, his behavior, his rigid behaviors are more obvious than the first guy. The guy in the 60s, the guy in his 40s, the younger guy, he's more obvious about his issues. He's probably more aware of them too. And so the next trait that we know that's different about them is he's more aware. The younger guy, he's more aware of who he is. Hey, I don't want a relationship. This is who I am. Take it or leave it in the beginning. Slowly he changes. The other guy, the older guy, he's less aware. Oh, he blames his ex-wife. It's her fault for the marriage troubles. That's the reason the marriage failed, whatever it is. Maybe he drags other people into it. You know, she was crazy. She was too demanding, whatever it was. And maybe she was too demanding from his perspective, but he's not thinking, but I was probably too distant. The other guy was aware. You know, I am the way I am. Take it or leave it, right? So that awareness. The next one is progress. The older man, he did not show any progress that I've displayed in this case study. None, right? The younger guy, progress, slow progress, but over the years, more change and willing to exhibit change in his behaviors, but also willing to engage in intimacy. The next one is accountability. The first man blamed his wife. The second man, we didn't really talk much about accountability, but considering he is changing, he's admitting, I do want a relationship, whatever it is. He's kind of admitting that he was wrong to some extent, and he's more open about his feelings. The next trait is actually open about his feelings. The first man, we were mentioning communication style. He's very indirect, but he also is not really talking about feelings really at all. The second guy, he did display things always from a feeling standpoint, even if it doesn't sound like it. I don't want a relationship. But then later he's also saying that he wants things for her to change. It's very clear that he's a little bit more comfortable with emotions and feelings than the first man. Even if it doesn't seem like it, it's very rigid, it's still there. This is a higher chance of him changing because of this. And the very last one is actually admitting to some extent that they have changed to some extent. The first man didn't change, so it doesn't help. But the second man, the younger one, we had mentioned he changed his views on intimacy, on holidays, relationships, whatever it is. And that is a sign that he's actually more aware that he has changed from when he was a younger, before the relationship started, to where he is currently. He has some awareness that he himself has the capability to change, which means that he has more confidence in himself, okay? So every person is capable of changing, but sometimes it just doesn't happen in their lifetime, unfortunately. Relationships happen for many reasons. We can't really compare. This is not a general guide, but overall, let me just give you some of the key points about how you can tell if your avoidant is changing or not. Their communication style, if they're going to change, they're going to be more direct instead of indirect, okay? The next one is they're going to be a little bit more feeling forward. Even if it's rigid, they're going to express their feelings a little bit more obviously in comparison to someone who might not change as much. You're gonna see more progress in comparison to not seeing as much. They're gonna be more accountable for the relationship. They're gonna express their feelings from your side, and they're gonna admit that they have changed. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.